Welcome to the Fusion Mastery course. In this lesson, we'll be talking about toolbars. After completing this lesson, you'll be able to customize the toolbar. When working in Fusion 360, it's important to understand the tools you have at your disposal and how to access them. Let's get started talking about toolbars and how we can access the tools we need to design our products. First, let's open our data panel, navigate to your Fusion Mastery project, your Tier 1 folder, and let's upload the file by selecting Files and going to your Fusion Mastery Lesson 4 dataset and upload Toolbar Example. Once Toolbar Example is uploaded, go ahead and double-click on it and then hide your data panel. Now this file is a sculpt body of an RC helicopter. What we want to do is use this file to explore some of the various tools that we have at our disposal. Now before we get too far, we're not doing any modeling here, we're just looking at how to access the tools we need. The first thing that we want to do is we want to take a look at the model workspace and the tools that we have available to us. From left to right, we have a sketch dropdown. We're going to go ahead and select the sketch down arrow and note that we have Create Sketch, the line tool, as well as the rectangle 2-point tool. Now there's something important to note about the three of these. All three of these are also located up here on our toolbar. Create Sketch, a line tool, as well as a 2-point rectangle tool. Anytime you hover the cursor over one, you'll also note that it has a quick key next to it. L for line, R for rectangle, and the longer you hover, the more information becomes available to you next to that tooltip. In addition to knowing where tools are, it's important to know how to customize your area. So when we're working in the model workspace, we can easily add tools to our toolbar by navigating to them, in this case circle, center diameter circle, and all the way to the right hand side we have this up arrow that's called Add to Toolbar. Now if we left click on this, it's going to push that up to our toolbar so that we can access it quickly and easily anytime we want to. Anytime you want to remove something, navigate to it, and then click on the X next to it, and that'll pull it back down from our toolbar. Let's also take a look at some of the other tools we have available to us. Sketch tools are used in the sketching environment, but the Create tools allow us to do things like add or remove solid geometry. We can extrude, revolve, sweep geometry, we can add holes and threads, we can make some various primitives like boxes and cylinders. We can pattern and mirror, as well as some various other options. The Modify dropdown allows us to also manipulate geometry by doing things like rounding corners, shelling out a solid body, adding draft, and even replacing face with a surface. Now we will go through all of these tools, so don't worry about remembering what they are and where they are right now. Just note the way that we access these tools. Under Assemble, this allows us to do things like add joints to have motion between components. We can enable context sets, which allows solid context between bodies, and even enter a motion study. The Construct area allows us to do things like create planes, axes, as well as vertices. The Inspect allows us to do things like measure, look at interference between components, and even analyze curvature. Insert allows us to do things like add decals, put an attached canvas, which is what this image is behind us looking at the RC helicopters, and even do things like insert a McMaster car component or insert a manufactured part. The Make dropdown allows us to do things like send to a 3D printer utility or save as an STL file, as well as do things like get quotes directly from Protolabs on 3D printing, CNC machining, or even injection molded parts. Same thing with Fathom, 100K Garages, Bright Hub, Project Resources, and get parts made with MakeTime. Now just like some of the other options, we can add or remove these from our toolbar however we want. There's also an add-in section allowing you to do scripts and add-ins, which are C++, Java, or Python created code. We also have some selection tools, and again, we're going to explore all of these as needed. Everything that we've looked at is in what's called the model workspace, but we have various other workspaces that we can explore. The Patch workspace has a very similar layout. The Create section allows us to do various things while we're working with surfaces. The Modify section again allows us to do things like round corners, but we also have specific tools for surfaces like Trim, Extend, and Stitch. The Assemble dropdown looks the same, as well as Construct, Inspect, Insert, Make, Add-ins, and Select. As we go down the line, we have various other workspaces. The Render workspace, notice our toolbars look a bit different. Once the Render workspace is loaded, we have tools that allow us to do things like change the appearance of parts, as well as change the way our scene looks, add decals, and even work directly with certain types of renders. You'll also notice with the rendering environment that at the bottom, we have some default renders that are created anytime you have a file. Now these are your default front, home, right, and top views. As we go down the line, we also have an animation, which allows us to make storyboards and create animations of parts exploding away from each other for detailed drawings, or if we simply just want to do a rotation around our object. We also have simulation, cam, and drawing environments. And again, we're going to explore all of these in detail as needed, but just note the way that we access different tools in different environments is through navigating our workspaces depending on what task we need to do. There are two more workspaces that we can explore. That's the Sculpt workspace and the Mesh workspace. The Sculpt workspace allows us to use subdivided modeling. When we're in the Sculpt workspace, we have various tools that work specifically on subdivided T-spline bodies. Edit Form allows us to do things like grab bodies and change the shape. We also have symmetry options, utilities for converting, and then we also have Sketch, Construct, Inspect, Insert, Select, as well as this option over here for finishing the form. When we finish a form out of the Sculpt environment, it brings us back into our model workspace. The last workspace is called the Mesh environment. Now, if you'll remember, Mesh was something that was located on the Preferences Preview section under Mesh Workspace. Now, this brings in the Autodesk Mesh Mixer and allows us to work directly with mesh files, doing things like remeshing them, smoothing them out, and even reverse engineering them by making sketches and allowing us to slice meshes. Now we'll explore tools again as needed, so don't worry too much about remembering where everything is. It's just important to remember how to navigate workspaces and how to access the tools from our toolbars.